You won't believe the shocking events that unfolded. Stay until the end to uncover the full story. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support makes a difference. Snoop Dogg leaned back in his luxurious seat, his sunglasses perched comfortably on his nose as he scrolled through his playlist on his phone. This was the trip he had been dreaming of for months, a well-deserved vacation to the pristine beaches of the Maldives. Life had been hectic lately with tours, recording sessions, and an unending cycle of commitments. For once, he was allowing himself to unwind. The private jet was a marvel of modern comfort. The plush leather seats, ambient lighting, and attentive crew made it feel more like a luxury hotel than an aircraft. Snoop nodded in appreciation as a flight attendant approached with a glass of freshly pressed juice. "Here you go, Mr. Broadus," she said with a warm smile, addressing him by his real name. "If there's anything you need, don't hesitate to ask." "Thank you, sweetheart," he replied smoothly, taking the glass and raising it in a mock toast. "Y'all outdone yourselves with this setup." The plane began taxiing to the runway, and the soft hum of the engines filled the cabin. Snoop adjusted his seat, glancing briefly at the other passengers. Most seemed to be well-to-do individuals traveling for business or leisure. They appeared more interested in their own affairs than in recognizing a world-famous rap icon. As the plane lifted off the ground, Snoop felt the usual thrill of flight, mixed with the relief of leaving behind the relentless demands of his daily life. He reached for his tablet and started jotting down ideas for a new track, his mind buzzing with creativity. Hours into the flight, the cabin lights dimmed slightly, signaling the transition to nighttime. Snoop reclined his seat and closed his eyes, allowing the gentle motion of the plane to lull him into a light doze. The staff moved quietly, ensuring everyone's comfort without disturbing the serene atmosphere. Somewhere over international waters, the intercom crackled to life, and the captain's voice broke the silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've successfully left U.S. airspace and are cruising at an altitude of 35,000 feet. The weather is clear, and we're on schedule to arrive in the Maldives in just under 8 hours. Thank you for flying with us, and please let our crew know if you require anything." The announcement was met with polite murmurs of acknowledgement. A few passengers glanced out of their windows, where the vast expanse of the ocean was visible under the moonlight. Snoop stretched slightly, appreciating the captain's professionalism and the smooth ride so far. Moments later, to Snoop's mild surprise, the captain stepped out of the cockpit. He was a tall man in his late 40s with neatly combed hair and an air of authority. He began greeting the passengers, exchanging brief pleasantries as he made his way through the aisle. It seemed like a routine gesture, the kind of personal touch expected on a high-end private flight. When the captain reached Snoop's row, he paused. His eyes lingered a moment too long, and a faint frown creased his face. Snoop removed his sunglasses, offering a polite nod. "Enjoying the flight, sir?" the captain asked, his tone measured but tinged with an edge Snoop couldn't quite place. "Sure am," Snoop replied easily, his signature charisma evident. "Y'all run a tight ship. Appreciate it." But the captain didn't move on. Instead, his gaze hardened, and his lips pressed into a thin line. Snoop noticed the change immediately, a subtle but palpable shift in the atmosphere. It was as if the man's demeanor had darkened in an instant. "Well," the captain said, his voice carrying a hint of suspicion, "we aim to ensure everyone here belongs. May I ask who you are and why you're on this flight?" Snoop blinked, momentarily caught off guard. I'm Snoop Dogg," he said, gesturing casually toward himself. "Booked the flight fare and square. Everything's in order, my man." The captain's frown deepened, and he crossed his arms. "I see, but you'll forgive me if I don't just take your word for it." The tension in the air grew palpable, and nearby passengers began to take notice. Snoop maintained his calm demeanor, though his jaw tightened slightly. He had encountered his share of doubters and critics, but this was a different kind of hostility. "Look," Snoop said evenly, "you got the paperwork, right? Check it. Everything's legit. No need to make a thing out of this." The captain didn't budge. Instead, he glanced around the cabin as if searching for validation from others. "We'll see about that," he muttered, turning sharply on his heel and disappearing back into the cockpit. Snoop sighed, leaning back in his seat. Something about the interaction gnawed at him, but he resolved not to let it ruin his trip. After all, he had done nothing wrong. This was supposed to be a time for relaxation, not confrontation. The rest of the passengers settled back into their routines, though a few exchanged curious glances. Snoop put his sunglasses back on, closed his eyes, and tried to brush off the unsettling exchange. But deep down, a small voice whispered that this might be the start of something far worse. The cabin lights remained dim, and the soothing hum of the engines filled the air. Passengers were either dozing off, watching movies, or chatting in hushed tones. Snoop leaned back, attempting to relax despite the uneasy feeling that lingered after his encounter with the captain. He scrolled through his phone, replaying beats, trying to keep his mind occupied. Then the unexpected happened. The intercom crackled once again, and the captain's voice came through, this time more curt. "Mr. Broaddus, please remain seated. I will be speaking with you shortly," the voice announced, echoing through the cabin. Heads turned as passengers glanced toward Snoop's seat. He straightened up, his brow furrowing. This wasn't just unusual, it felt targeted. Murmurs began, and Snoop couldn't help but notice the wary glances being cast his way. Before long, the captain emerged from the cockpit, his face a mask of cold authority. Two flight attendants trailed nervously behind him, clearly uncomfortable. He strode directly to Snoop's seat, his posture rigid and his eyes blazing with something Snoop recognized all too well, thinly veiled hostility. "Mr. Broaddus," the captain began, his voice sharp, "I have some questions regarding your presence on this flight." Snoop exhaled slowly, maintaining his composure. "Man, I already told you. I booked this flight fair and square. You can check with the charter company. Everything's legit." The captain's lips curled into a smirk. "You expect me to believe that a man like you is flying first class on a private jet? Let's be honest here. You don't exactly look the part." Before the confrontation could escalate further, a voice boomed from behind the captain. "Hey, what's going on here?" Everyone turned, and the cabin erupted into gasps as none other than Snoop's close friend, Dr. Dre, emerged from the rear lounge of the jet. He was followed by Ice Cube and a few other well-known friends, their presence commanding immediate attention. "You're messing with Snoop? Seriously?" Dre's voice was firm, his expression a mix of disbelief and anger. The cabin's energy shifted dramatically as the crew and passengers realized who they were dealing with. "I think you owe my boy an apology," Ice Cube added, stepping forward. The captain froze, his earlier arrogance replaced with visible discomfort. The sight of Snoop's powerful allies had clearly thrown him off balance. "We're not letting this slide," Dre said. "You picked the wrong flight to act like this." What happened next turned the trip into an unforgettable saga, forever altering the lives of everyone on board. The captain stood frozen, his once confident demeanor faltering under the piercing gazes of Snoop's friends. The tension in the cabin was almost tangible, with every passenger glued to their seats, watching the confrontation unfold. I didn't realize," the captain stammered, his earlier arrogance quickly giving way to panic. He glanced around the cabin, searching for some semblance of support, but found none. The passengers, initially hesitant to intervene, now looked on with expressions of shock and disgust. "You didn't realize what?" Dr. Dre shot back, his voice calm but laced with authority. "That you were harassing one of the most respected names in the game, or that you were about to lose your job over it?" The captain swallowed hard, his lips twitching as if searching for words. I was doing my job, he finally managed to say. I thought there was something suspicious? Suspicious? Ice Cube interjected, his voice rising. You mean the way you're suspicious of anyone who doesn't fit your little picture of who should be flying private? That's not doing your job. That's straight-up profiling. The murmurs among the passengers grew louder, with some nodding in agreement. One brave woman, seated a few rows behind Snoop, stood up. I saw how you treated him, she said. You didn't ask anyone else those kinds of questions. This is unacceptable. The captain's face turned crimson, and for a moment it looked like he might try to defend himself. But before he could speak, Snoop stood up, his towering presence silencing the room. Look, man, Snoop said, his voice steady and commanding, you messed up, big time, but I'm not here to argue with you. I'm here to enjoy my flight, same as everybody else. So why don't you take a step back, rethink your attitude, and let me and my crew handle our business? For a moment, there was silence. Then, as if on cue, Dre and Ice Cube stepped closer, their presence making it clear that the captain had no choice but to back down. Muttering an inaudible excuse, he turned sharply on his heel and retreated to the cockpit, his posture stiff and his authority shattered. The cabin erupted in applause, passengers clapping and cheering for Snoop and his friends. The energy shifted entirely, with the oppressive tension replaced by a sense of camaraderie. Dre clapped Snoop on the shoulder, grinning. Man, we weren't about to let you deal with that alone. I knew y'all had my back, Snoop replied, his trademark smirk returning. But damn, that was wild. For the rest of the flight, the atmosphere was one of celebration. Passengers approached Snoop and his friends, offering words of support and sharing their own stories of prejudice and resilience. The crew, visibly shaken by the incident, went out of their way to ensure everyone's comfort, especially Snoop and his crew. As the plane began its descent into the Maldives, Dre leaned over to Snoop. You know this story's going to blow up, right? You can't let it slide. Oh, I'm not, Snoop replied, his voice calm but resolute. The world's going to hear about this one, and trust me, that captain's going to regret ever messing with me. When the plane landed, the group was greeted by a host of resort staff who had heard whispers of the incident. Cameras were waiting, and within hours, the story began to make waves across social media. Videos of Dre and Ice Cube stepping in to defend Snoop went viral, sparking a nationwide conversation about discrimination and the power of standing together. Back at the resort, Snoop and his crew finally began to unwind, the turquoise waters and white sand beaches providing the perfect backdrop for reflection. But even as they relaxed, they knew the fight wasn't over. We've got work to do, Snoop said, his gaze fixed on the horizon. But for now, let's enjoy this moment. And enjoy it they did, knowing that their unity had turned an ugly situation into a powerful statement, and that their actions would inspire countless others to stand up for what's right. The group settled into the luxury of the Maldives, each moment a reminder of the ordeal they had just turned into a testament of resilience. But even as laughter filled the air and the turquoise waters shimmered under the sun, Snoop's mind remained sharp, focused on the larger battle ahead. Later that evening, as they sat around a private bonfire on the beach, the topic inevitably shifted back to the incident. Dre, sipping on a coconut drink, broke the silence. Snoop, you already know the whole world's talking about this, right? Hashtag Justice for Snoop is blowing up. Ice Cube chuckled. Yeah, I saw it trending before we even landed. People are coming for that captain, and it's about time. But it's not just about him. It's about making sure this doesn't happen again to anybody. Snoop nodded, the firelight casting a reflective glow on his face. Y'all are right. It ain't just about me. It's about everybody who's been made to feel like they don't belong. We've got a platform. We've got to use it. The camaraderie was palpable. As the waves crashed softly in the background, the group discussed their next moves. Dre suggested a press conference, Ice Cube proposed a documentary-style exposé, and their mutual friend, Kendrick Lamar, who had quietly joined them on the trip, offered to write and produce a song inspired by the ordeal. "That's how we make noise," Kendrick said, his voice steady but impassioned. "Music, media, and momentum. We don't just tell the story, we make them feel it." The next morning, the group got to work. Snoop's manager, Kevin, had already begun coordinating with legal teams and media outlets back in the States. They planned a detailed campaign, blending legal action with public awareness efforts to ensure the pilot's behavior was not only punished, but also served as a cautionary tale. 3 days later, the group returned to the U.S. in style, welcomed by a massive crowd of supporters at the airport. Fans, activists, and media crews gathered, their signs and chants echoing a unified demand for justice. Snoop, flanked by Dre, Ice Cube, and Kendrick, stepped forward to address the crowd. "This ain't just my fight," Snoop began, his voice carrying over the cheers. "It's our fight. It's about standing up to ignorance, to hate, to prejudice, no matter where it shows up. And together, we're going to make sure nobody else has to go through this." The crowd erupted in applause, and the momentum only grew from there. Over the next few weeks, the campaign took the nation by storm. Interviews, social media posts, and even performances kept the story alive, galvanizing a movement that extended far beyond the music industry. When the case finally went to court, it was a spectacle. The pilot's defense crumbled under the weight of overwhelming evidence, including passenger testimonies and damning video footage. The court's verdict was clear: guilty on all counts, including discrimination and assault. The captain's pilot's license was permanently revoked, and he faced significant penalties, both legal and financial. Outside the courthouse, Snoop addressed a sea of reporters and fans. "Justice has been served, but this isn't the end. It's the beginning of something bigger. We're going to keep fighting, keep speaking up, and keep making sure that love and respect win every time." The victory was monumental, a symbol of resilience and unity in the face of adversity. And as Snoop and his friends returned to the Maldives to finally enjoy their well-earned vacation, they knew they had not just fought back, they had sparked a movement. Under the tropical sun, with the ocean stretching endlessly before them, Snoop, Dre, Ice Cube, and Kendrick sat back and reflected. Their laughter filled the air, a sound of triumph and camaraderie that resonated far beyond the shores. They had turned a moment of injustice into a powerful testament of solidarity. And they weren't done yet. Back in the Maldives, Snoop Dogg and his crew finally allowed themselves a moment to breathe. The days that followed the courtroom victory were filled with a mix of celebration and reflection. On a private stretch of beach, the group gathered around a massive infinity pool at their resort villa. The atmosphere was light, but the undertone of their recent ordeal remained. "Man, you really had that captain sweating bullets," Dre said, grinning as he leaned back on a lounger. "I bet he didn't think you'd roll this deep." Ice Cube smirked, swirling his drink. "That's the thing. They never expect us to show up with receipts and backup, but when we do, it's game over." Snoop chuckled, shaking his head. "It's wild, man. I was just trying to take a break, get away from the madness for a bit. And then, boom, it's like the universe said, not yet." Kendrick leaned forward, his tone serious. "But look what came out of it. You didn't just fight back. You showed people it's okay to demand respect, no matter where you are or who's coming at you." The group nodded in agreement. The ripple effect of their actions was undeniable. Messages of support had poured in from around the world, and stories of similar experiences were being shared on social media. The incident had ignited a global conversation about equality and dignity. That evening, the resort staff organized a private dinner on the beach for the group. The setting was breathtaking: flickering lanterns, a soft breeze, and the sound of the waves provided the perfect backdrop. As they dined, Dre brought up an idea that had been brewing in his mind. "You know," he began, "we've got to do something big with this momentum, like something that leaves a lasting mark." "What are you thinking?" Snoop asked, raising an eyebrow. "A foundation," Dre replied. "Something that supports underprivileged kids who've dealt with prejudice. We could fund scholarships, mentorship programs, give them opportunities they might not otherwise get." Snoop's face lit up. "That's real, Dre. That's something that lasts." The table buzzed with excitement as ideas flew back and forth. By the end of the night, they had a plan in motion. The foundation would be called Respect the Sky, symbolizing the fight for fairness in all spaces, even those as lofty as the skies. The following week, back in the United States, the announcement of the foundation was met with widespread acclaim. Donations poured in from fans, fellow celebrities, and even corporations eager to align themselves with the cause. The launch event was a star-studded affair, with Snoop, Dre, Ice Cube, and Kendrick taking the stage to speak about their vision. "This ain't about one flight or one captain," Snoop said to the crowd. "It's about creating a world where nobody has to fight for basic respect, and we're going to make that happen." The journey from injustice to triumph had come full circle. What started as a shocking encounter at 35,000 feet had become a movement, a foundation, and a beacon of hope for countless others. Snoop Dogg and his friends had not only reclaimed their peace, but had also laid the groundwork for change that would outlast them all. As they celebrated the foundation's success, Dre clapped Snoop on the back. "See? Even when they try to bring you down, you find a way to rise higher." Snoop smiled, raising a glass. "To rising higher, and to making sure everyone gets a chance to do the same." The clink of their glasses echoed, a symbol of victory, unity, and the power of standing together. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Your support means everything. Stay tuned for more amazing stories.